Johnny Manziel wasn't the type of quarterback who emerged quietly, honed his skills in anonymity, and slowly climbed to greatness. He didn't wait his turn. He kicked the door in. The moment he stepped on a college football field, it felt like the universe bent to his rhythm. His style wasn't polished or prototypical. It was unpredictable, chaotic, magnetic. And yet, beneath the wild scrambles and off-platform throws, there was something deeper. A player who had been underestimated at every level and carried that chip like it was armor. Born in Tyler, Texas, in December of 1992, Johnny grew up in the hill country town of Kerrville. It wasn't a place known for producing college football royalty, but then again, Johnny was never typical. The Manziel family had money thanks to a background in Texas oil, and Johnny had freedom. That freedom, combined with his relentless competitiveness, shaped him early. He didn't walk, he ran. He didn't wait, he challenged. And whether it was baseball, basketball, or football, he played like everything was on the line. All gas, no brakes. By the time he reached Kerrville-Tivy High School, Johnny was already a Texas-sized headline waiting to be written. He broke school records with his ability to extend plays and make magic with both his legs and his arm. He ran like a tailback, threw like a shortstop, and carried himself like he knew something the rest of the world hadn't figured out yet. He finished his senior year with 4,600 total yards and 75 touchdowns. And yet, somehow, major college programs still passed him over. Too short, too wild, too risky. Texas said no. So did Oklahoma. LSU gave him a look, but then moved on. For all his excitement, he didn't look like a quarterback you could just build a system around. He looked like a system breaker. But Kevin Sumlin, newly hired at Texas A&M, saw something different. The Aggies were on the verge of entering the SEC for the first time, a leap that promised more exposure and far more pain if they couldn't keep up. Sumlin needed a spark. Manziel was that spark. He redshirted in 2011, waiting behind Ryan Tannehill, but the coaching staff knew they had something unusual. In the film room and on the practice field, Johnny was raw, yes, but brilliant. He didn't just read plays, he felt them. Then came 2012. Texas A&M's first year in the SEC. The rest of the conference expected them to get humbled. Their starting quarterback? An undersized redshirt freshman with a strange name and a chaotic style. They didn't know it yet, but they were about to meet Johnny Football. When Johnny finally took the field in 2012, it was like flipping on stadium lights in a blackout. Game after game, he dazzled. In just his fifth collegiate start, he accounted for 576 yards of offense against Louisiana Tech. And he didn't just beat bad teams. He made good defenses look amateurish. The way he extended plays bordered on absurd. He'd scramble out of a sure sack, spin twice, roll left, point a receiver open, then flick past 30 yards downfield off one foot. People called it reckless. Manziel called it football. By midseason, national reporters were taking notice. Texas A&M might have something here, they said. But the defining moment of that season, the moment that elevated him from interesting to immortal, came in early November. November 10th, 2012, Bryant-Denny Stadium, Alabama. Nick Saban, the number one defense in the country. A&M entered as 13-point underdogs. Nobody gave them a shot. But Johnny, he didn't just believe. He attacked. Early in the first quarter, he fumbled a snap, recovered it off a bounce, spun around, stepped forward, scanned the field, and found a receiver wide open in the end zone. It was a busted play. Pure backyard chaos. And it worked. Not by accident, but because that was Johnny's entire game, making the impossible look planned. He torched Alabama for 345 total yards and 2 touchdowns. The Aggies won 29-24. And just like that, Johnny Manziel became a national name. He didn't just defeat the defending champs, he danced on their graves. By season's end, his stats looked like video game numbers. Over 3,700 passing yards, more than 1,400 rushing yards, 47 total touchdowns. And with those numbers came history. Johnny Manziel became the first freshman ever to win the Heisman Trophy. When he stood on that stage in New York, holding the most coveted award in college football, his face was part grin, part disbelief. He thanked his family, his coaches, his teammates, but you could tell he knew the story was just beginning. College Station was electric. The media dubbed him Johnny Football, and the nickname stuck like a tattoo. Kids wore his jersey. Adults mimicked his money fingers celebration. Texas A&M became must-watch television every Saturday, not because of championships, but because of Johnny. He changed the way college football felt, and behind the scenes, the world was shifting around him. By the time 2013 rolled around, Johnny Manziel was no longer just a football player. He was a phenomenon. He was on the covers of ESPN the magazine, Sports Illustrated, and even made his way into the pages of GQ. Off the field, he was photographed with rappers, celebrities, and NBA stars. He posed courtside at Miami Heat games with LeBron James. He was dropped in Drake lyrics. For a college sophomore, he was living in a cultural stratosphere previously reserved for pro athletes, superstars really. And yet, he was still in College Station, still enrolled in classes, still just 20 years old. The summer following his Heisman win was a blur. Manziel never wanted to shy away from the limelight, embraced his status with the same improvisational flair he brought to the football field. He lived publicly, too publicly for some. Every Instagram post became a news item. Every late-night photo turned into a talking point on ESPN. He spent time at the Manning Passing Academy, one of the most prestigious offseason camps for young quarterbacks, but was sent home early. Officially, because he overslept. Unofficially, rumors of partying and lack of seriousness swirled. The Mannings never publicly condemned him, but the message was clear. Manziel's brand was growing louder than his game. Then came the autograph scandal. Reports emerged that Johnny had been paid to sign thousands of items for memorabilia dealers, an NCAA violation if proven. The investigation took weeks. Speculation turned into circus, and in the end, he was suspended for half a game, 30 minutes of football. That was the NCAA's judgment. It was a slap on the wrist, and it only amplified the conversation. Was this kid untouchable, or was the system broken? But when the 2013 season kicked off, Manziel did what he always did. He showed up and made defenders look like they were stuck in mud. He put up numbers that in many ways were even better than his Heisman year. He passed for over 4,100 yards, rushed for nearly 800, and accounted for 41 touchdowns. He read defenses more calmly. His footwork improved. His deep ball became sharper. He evolved as a passer, even as the chaos around him intensified. Yet something had changed. The mystique was still there, but the weight of expectation and fame had started to erode his foundation. On the sidelines, he grew more emotional. He jawed with defenders. He taunted the Rice sideline with money signs. After one touchdown, he pantomimed signing an autograph. It was part of his persona, sure, but also a sign of fraying edges. Texas A&M's defense struggled that season, and with it, their win total dropped. They finished 9-4, a solid record for most programs, but not what people expected for a team with Johnny Football at quarterback. They didn't contend for a title. They didn't even win their division. For the first time, the football didn't match the hype. Still, Manziel's star power didn't fade. In December, he declared for the NFL draft. There was no tearful goodbye, no long press conference, just a statement. Businesslike, almost clinical. Like even he knew this was always going to be temporary. He left College Station with over 9,900 total yards and 93 touchdowns in just 2 seasons. He gave the school a modern identity and left behind a stadium that would soon undergo massive renovations, funded in part by the legend that he helped build. But he also left behind questions. Was he a system-breaking genius, or just a kid who burned too hot? Scouts were conflicted. He had arm talent, he had escapability, he had moxie, but he also was volatile, both in play and personality. But the NFL wasn't built for improvisation and attitude. It demanded structure, routine, humility, and Johnny didn't seem to operate on those settings. Yet, as draft night approached, his name stayed in the headlines. Mock drafts had him going as high as top 5. He was working with quarterback coaches, saying the right things in interviews, repeating buzzwords, mature, ready, focused. But whether teams believed him, that was another story. Draft night would reveal more than just a selection. It would reveal just how much the NFL really wanted the circus. The 2014 NFL Draft was a spectacle before the first pick was even announced. Analysts debated endlessly. Would Johnny Manziel go top 10? Would someone trade up? Would a front office gamble on a quarterback who played like a pinball machine and partied like a rock star? As the draft unfolded, one by one, his name wasn't called. Blake Bortles went 3rd, Teddy Bridgewater's name started to gain steam. Teams passed and passed and passed again. Sitting in the green room at Radio City Music Hall, Manziel kept smiling, tapping his phone, waiting. The camera kept cutting back to him. Each time, his expression shifted slightly. Cool confidence morphing into something more anxious. Finally, with the 22nd pick, the Cleveland Browns traded up and made the call. Johnny Manziel, quarterback, Texas A&M. The crowd erupted. Manziel stood, smiled wide, and flashed his now signature money fingers to the camera. It was a moment soaked in symbolism. Cleveland, desperate for a savior, had just chosen the most polarizing player in the draft. It was hope, wrapped in volatility. The Browns needed excitement. They needed attention. And in Johnny, they found both. But they also found something else. Chaos. His arrival in Cleveland was unlike anything the franchise had experienced. He was instantly the top jersey seller in the NFL. He drew massive crowds at training camp. Local media tracked his every move. National media followed his Instagram feed like it was the game plan. And from day one, Manziel was unapologetically himself. He showed up in Vegas during off days. He partied at concerts. He posed with celebrities. To his defenders, he was just a 21-year-old enjoying life. To critics, he was the embodiment of distraction. Still, the Browns didn't just hand him the job. Brian Hoyer, the steady veteran, won the starting role out of camp. Manziel sat. He watched. He waited. But the fans didn't. They chanted his name in the fourth quarter of blowouts. The media stirred the pot. Talk radio lit up with questions about when, not if, he would start. Eventually, in Week 13 against Buffalo, he got in. He ran for a touchdown. The stadium lit up. It felt like a spark. 2 weeks later, he was named the starter. His first official start came against the Cincinnati Bengals on December 14th, 2014. Expectations were sky high. The Browns were in playoff contention. The city buzzed. It did not go well. Manziel completed just 10 of 18 passes for 80 yards. He threw 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times, and the Browns lost 30-0. It wasn't just a bad game. It was a brutal reality check. The speed of the NFL overwhelmed him. The improvisation that worked in college failed against NFL defenses. His footwork was erratic. His reads were slow. The magic was not there. Criticism came fast, and it was harsh. Was Johnny ready? Had he put in the work? Could he adapt? Or was he, and always going to be, a bust? The Browns tried again. He got another start, another shot, but the results were the same. Sporadic flashes of athleticism drowned in inconsistency and turnovers. After the season, Johnny entered a treatment facility. Officially, it was for undisclosed reasons, but it was widely reported that he was addressing issues with alcohol. He stayed in rehab for 73 days. When he emerged, he spoke like a man aware of the stakes. He talked about focus, about being better, about doing things differently. The Browns said the right things too. They brought in Josh McCown to mentor him. The team was once again cautiously optimistic. And in 2015, Johnny did have moments. In week 2, he connected on a deep touchdown against the Titans. He showed poise. He stayed in the pocket more. There were signs of growth. But then, as always, came the distractions. During the bye week, a video surfaced of Manziel partying in Texas. Loud music, alcohol, slurred speech. The video was damning, not because it showed a crime, but because it showed a player who had promised change, falling back into the same cycle. The Browns benched him. The trust was gone. By season's end, it was over. On March 11, 2016, Cleveland released Johnny Manziel. He had played in just 14 games, thrown 7 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, rushed for a handful more, but most of all, he had become a symbol of wasted potential, of dysfunction, of the danger that comes when celebrity outweighs preparation. He was just 23 years old, but the story didn't stop there. Manziel tried to reboot his football life. He signed with the CFL's Hamilton Tiger Cats in 2018, but did not play. He was traded to Montreal and started a few games. The flashes were gone. The magic looked dim. He then joined the short-lived Alliance of American Football in 2019, playing for the Memphis Express. It was short, chaotic, and ended with the league folding. He surfaced again in 2021, playing for fan-controlled football, a hybrid digital crowdsourced league. It was more entertainment than sport, but even there, the spark was fleeting. Interviews followed, podcasts, documentaries. He admitted to his failures. He opened up about being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. He spoke of using alcohol to mask pain, of letting down those who believed in him, of never taking the game seriously enough. For once, he wasn't smiling. He was reflecting. The bravado had faded, and in its place stood a man more self-aware, if still deeply complicated. Johnny Manziel had gone from myth to cautionary tale in less than 5 years. When the 2014 Topps Chrome rookie card of Johnny Manziel first hit the market, it captured a moment frozen in raw, electric possibility. The design was slick, shiny, refracted like a stadium under lights. A young Manziel, mid-throw, in a fresh Cleveland Browns uniform. It wasn't just a trading card, it was a bet. A bet that maybe, just maybe, this kid could rewrite the story of a franchise. A bet that swagger could become substance. A bet that all that chaos, maybe it was just part of the magic. But here's the thing about moments. They don't care how the story ends. They live forever in that one sliver of time. And in 2014, Johnny Manziel was still an idea we hadn't given up on yet. Cards don't update. They don't carry context. They don't include postscript paragraphs about failed comebacks or rehab stints. They don't explain the difference between who a player was and who they became. They just capture a frame, a glimpse of what once felt possible. For collectors, the Johnny Manziel rookie is now less about hype and more about memory. It takes you back to Tuscaloosa in 2012, to that Heisman speech, to the SportsCenter highlights of him juking defenders and pointing downfield, to the chaos and charisma that came before the cracks showed. And maybe that's why it still matters. Because Manziel didn't fade away gently. He exploded. He burned out like a meteor, fast, bright, and unforgettable. In College Station, he's still a king. There are murals with his face. Kids wear number 2 jerseys. Bars still play highlights on loop. What he did those 2 seasons at Texas A&M weren't just rare. It was transformative. He didn't just win games. He changed the culture, gave the school an identity it had lacked on the national stage. He made Aggie football cool. The legacy, while complicated, is secure. Even the university knows that the renovations to Kyle Field, the stadium that swelled with pride during his reign, owe much of their funding and energy to number 2. What makes Johnny Manziel's story linger on isn't just the stats or the failures. It's the larger questions he posed about the nature of modern fame in sports. He came before NIL, before athletes were encouraged to brand themselves, before Twitter was part of recruitment strategies. In many ways, he was ahead of his time, a player profiting off of his image in secret while the NCAA punished him for breathing. Today's athletes make millions legally from their likeness. Johnny did it when it still had to happen in motel rooms and behind closed doors. He wasn't just breaking tackles, he was breaking barriers, intentionally or not. And while the world watched him spiral, it never looked away, because Johnny Manziel wasn't boring. He was compelling, in the way that only deeply flawed prodigies can be. In the years since his NFL career ended, Johnny's been both candid and careful. He's done podcasts and interviews. He's admitted to failing himself, to wasting chances. He's been public about his mental health, about his bipolar diagnosis, about what fame did to him and what he let it do. He doesn't beg for sympathy, but he doesn't hide from accountability either. There's a quiet resignation in his tone now, not bitterness, but acceptance. I thought it would last forever, he once said, but I never treated it like it would. Those words now hit harder than any highlight, because every fan who believed in Johnny football wanted to believe it was forever too. So where does that leave us? With a card, a piece of chrome that for a little while represented more than a player. It represented a feeling, hope, rebellion, immediacy. And if you hold that 2014 Topps Chrome rookie in your hand today, it still shimmers, not with promise, but with memory. You remember where you were when he beat Alabama. You remember the money sign. You remember the way he looked when he scrambled, paused, and launched a 40-yard prayer that always seemed to land. You remember the ride, and that is what cardboard is for. Not to honor the clean careers, but to preserve the complicated ones. This has been Cardboard Credentials, because every card has a story. And sometimes the story is not about greatness. Sometimes it's about impact, about memory, about a flame that did not last, but lit up the world while it burned. Johnny Football may not have conquered the NFL, but for one stretch of time, he conquered us.